Can't stop me. It is cold. Do, 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 do. What the hell? I'm gonna just put this bitch on. I'm fucking cold. That's a fucking 3-pointer. That's not the one. Can't stop, won't stop the beat, won't stop. Can't stop the beat, won't. Do 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 do. Everybody, move your feet if you're united. Whoa, everybody. You know what? It's not working. I'm gonna turn this off for a minute, and I'm gonna cut on the fucking what's it called? Where is the lighter at? That was weird. I need it to heat up in here. It is freezing. Everybody, move your feet and united. You enter Bluetooth. Bluetooth mode. Waiting for connection. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. I gotta get it. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna have to get my computer. Oh God, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. Let me get rid of all this water because my computer is expensive. Throw all this shit out.
Connection is okay.
Even though I need some water in my life. My computer just connected to my speaker. Alright, move this. I got my. I don't think I want to drink today. Where I put it down, boy? I ain't gonna stop eating. Alrighty. Now, with that being said, you connected, right? Yep, it did. Okay, whatever. Ever since, I hate that shit. Maybe a new voice. Maybe the voice. Log in. Enter class. Not criminology. Enter psychology class. Browse with your voice. Ask a question about what's on your page. Explore Copilot mode. Turn it on now. What is this? Turn on Copilot mode. Copilot mode is on. See what you've unlocked. So what I say, ankle pilot? Okay, well, as long as you don't get rid of none of my shit, I really don't care about that. Now I gotta go to home. It says psychology. All this shit I gotta go to. Okay. Week 4. If I start reading it, I'll feel better about it. You get started on the stupid shit. Stop wasting time and procrastinating. Okay, we already know about this suicide cult shit. Oh, this number 1. Chapter 2. Chapter 2.
Chapter 2, Social Learning and Social Cognition. DNA evidence sets free another mistakenly identified prisoner. Ricky Johnson was freed from prison in Louisiana on January 14, 2008, after serving 26 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Photo courtesy of Greg Pearson Photography. On July 12, 1982, a woman in northwest Louisiana was held at gunpoint and raped. During the 4 hours that the rapist stayed in her house, he identified himself as Marcus Johnson from Leesville, Louisiana. When the victim reported the attack, the police could find no information about a Marcus Johnson, but they did find a Ricky Johnson who had once been arrested on a minor traffic charge. Mr. Johnson became the only suspect in the case. The victim was shown a photo lineup of 3 men who were listed as potential perpetrators, although the image of Johnson was 8 years old. The victim identified Johnson as the perpetrator, even though he looked very little like the description she had given of the attacker after the rape. Johnson was charged with aggravated sexual assault and was tried in Sabine Parish, Louisiana. During the trial, the victim told the jury that she was positive that he was the perpetrator, and there was no question in her mind. In 2007, however, Johnson's innocence was determined with forensic DNA testing, a technology that was not available at the time of the crime. Ricky Johnson's case is only one of many recent DNA exonerations, most of which stem from eyewitness misidentifications. In fact, eyewitness misidentification is the single greatest cause of wrongful convictions. Over the past 10 years, almost 400 people have been released from prison when DNA evidence confirmed that they could not have committed the crime for which they had been convicted. And in more than 3/4 of these cases, the cause of the innocent people being falsely convicted was erroneous eyewitness testimony. Wells, Mayman, and Penrod, 2006. Wells, G. L. Mayman, A. and Penrod, S. D. 2006. Eyewitness evidence, improving its probative value. Psychological Science in the Public Interest, 7-2, 45-75. According to the Innocence Project, http://www.innocenceproject.org, the human mind is not like a tape recorder. We neither record events exactly as we see them, nor recall them like a tape that has been rewound. In October 1999, the U.S. Department of Justice released the first national guide for collecting and preserving eyewitness evidence. The guide was commissioned by U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno, http://www.wic.org/bio/jreno.htm, and consisted of a panel of experts, including social psychologist Gary Wells, http://www.psychology.iastate.edu/tilde GLWells/bio2001.html. the world's foremost authority on the psychology of eyewitness identification. Sources: http://www.innocenceproject.org/content/Ricky_Johnson.php. Although being able to correctly identify the perpetrator of a crime that we have observed is fortunately not part of our everyday social activities, we do need to be able to accurately learn about the people that we interact with every day. Our remarkable abilities to size up and remember other people are enhanced by our affective and cognitive capacities. In this chapter, our focus will be on cognition, and we will consider how we learn about, remember information about, and judge others. Fisk and Taylor, 2007. McCrae and Quadfleet, 2010. Fisk, S. T. and Taylor, S. E. 2007. Social Cognition, From Brains to Culture. New York, McGraw-Hill, McCrae, C. N. and Quadfleet, S. 2010. Perceiving People. In S. T. Fisk, D. T. Gilbert, and G. Lindsay, eds. Handbook of Social Psychology, 5th edition, Volume 1, pages 428 to 463. Hoboken, New Jersey, John Wiley and Sons. Then, in Chapter 3, Social Effect, we will turn to a focus on the role of affect in these same processes. Most generally, this chapter is about social cognition, the mental activity that relates to social activities and helps us meet the goal of understanding and predicting the behavior of ourselves and others. A fundamental part of social cognition involves learning, the relatively permanent change in knowledge that is acquired through experience. We will see that a good part of our learning and our judgments of other people operates out of our awareness. We are profoundly affected by things that we do not know are influencing us. But we also consciously think about and analyze our lives and our relationships with others, seeking out the best ways to fulfill our goals and aspirations. As we investigate the role of cognition in everyday life, we'll consider the ways that people use their cognitive abilities to make good decisions and to inform their behavior in a useful and accurate way. We'll also consider the potential for mistakes and biases in human judgment. We'll see that although we are generally pretty good at sizing up other people and creating effective social interactions, we are not perfect. And we'll see that the errors we make frequently occur because of our reliance on our schemas and attitudes and a general tendency to take shortcuts through the use of cognitive heuristics, information processing rules of thumb that enable us to think in ways that are quick and easy, but that may sometimes lead to error. In short, although our cognitive abilities are good enough, there are definitely some things we could do better. Janet Reno is the first woman Attorney General of the United States of America, nominated by President Bill Clinton on February 11, 1993. She was again appointed in 1997 by President Clinton and remains Attorney General of the United States. Attorney General of the United States Janet Reno has several key priorities. Asterisk, reduce crime and violence by incarcerating serious, repeat offenders, and finding alternative forms of punishment for first-time, nonviolent offenders. Asterisk, focus on prevention and early intervention efforts to keep children away from gangs, drugs, and violence, and on the road to strong, healthy, and self-sufficient lives. Asterisk enforced civil rights laws to ensure equal opportunity for all Americans. Asterisk ensure that the Department of Justice reflects a diverse government, making integrity, excellence, and professionalism the hallmarks of the department. This is now. The early life and career of Janet Reno helps us understand the reasons why Janet Reno is the remarkable person she is. Born on July 21st, 1938 in Miami, Florida, her father, Henry Reno, came to the United States from Denmark and for 43 years was a police reporter for the Miami Herald. Jane Wood, Reno's mother, raised her children and then became an investigative reporter for the Miami News. Janet Reno has 3 younger siblings. Strong roots for a strong woman. Janet Reno attended public school in Dade County, Florida, where she was a debating champion at Coral Gables High School. In 1956, Janet Reno enrolled at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, where she majored in chemistry, became president of the Women's Self-Government Association, and earned her room and board. In 1960, Janet Reno enrolled at Harvard Law School, one of only 16 women in a class of more than 500 students. She received her Bachelor of Laws from Harvard 3 years later. Despite her Harvard degree, she had difficulty obtaining work as a lawyer because she was a woman. In 1971, Janet Reno was named staff director of the Judiciary Committee of the Florida House of Representatives. She helped revise the Florida court system. In 1973, she accepted a position with the Dade County State's Attorney's Office. She left the state's attorney's office in 1976 to become a partner in a private law firm. In 1978, Reno was appointed State Attorney General for Dade County. She was elected to the office of State Attorney in November 1978 and was returned to office by the voters 4 more times. She helped reform the juvenile justice system and pursued delinquent fathers for child support payments and established the Miami Drug Court. The strength, vision, tenacity, and commitment of Janet Reno makes her a role model for all who seek justice. Women's International Center is privileged to present the 1997 Living Legacy Award to Janet Reno in honor of her many contributions, with main page biographies.
All right. Whatever. So I already read this.
.1 Sources of Social Knowledge. Learning Objectives. Review the principles of operant, associational, and observational learning and explain the similarities and differences among them. Explain how and when schemas and attitudes do and do not change as a result of the operation of accommodation and assimilation. Outline the ways that schemas are likely to be maintained through processes that create assimilation. Human beings have very large brains and highly developed cognitive capacities. Thus, it will come as no surprise that we meet the challenges that we face in everyday life largely by thinking about them and then planning what to do about them. Over time, people develop a huge amount of knowledge about the self, other people, social relationships, and social groups. This knowledge guides our responses to the people we interact with every day.
True.
Our knowledge accumulates as a result of learning. People have many memories about their experiences with other people, and they use this information to make predictions about what people will do in the future. This knowledge is gained through learning. The study of learning is closely associated with the behaviorist school of psychology, which includes the psychologists John B. Watson and B. F. Skinner. For behaviorists, the fundamental aspect of learning is the process of conditioning, the ability to connect stimuli, the changes that occur in the environment, with responses, behaviors, or other actions. The behaviorists described two types of conditioning that are particularly important in behaviorism: operant conditioning, also known as instrumental conditioning, and classical conditioning, also known as respondent conditioning. When applied to human behavior, these two processes are frequently called, respectively, operant learning and associational learning. Operant learning. If a child touches a hot radiator, she quickly learns that the radiator is dangerous and is not likely to touch it again. If we have unpleasant experiences with people from a certain state or country, or a positive relationship with a person who has blonde hair or green eyes, we may develop negative or positive attitudes about people with these particular characteristics and attempt to reduce or increase our interactions with them. These changes in our understanding of our environments represent operant learning, the principle that we learn new information as a result of the consequences of our behavior. According to operant learning principles, experiences that are followed by positive emotions, reinforcements, or rewards are likely to be repeated, whereas experiences that are followed by negative emotions, punishments, are less likely to be repeated. In operant learning, the person learns from the consequences of his or her own actions. Although its principles are very simple, operant learning is probably the most important form of human learning. Operant learning occurs when a schoolroom bully threatens his classmates because doing so allows him to get his way, when a child gets good grades because her parents threaten to punish her if she doesn't, when we begin to like someone who smiles at us frequently, and in hundreds of other cases every day. Operant learning can also be used to explain how people learn complex behaviors, such as how to read, and to understand complex social behaviors, such as the development of social norms and culture. The application of operant learning to social psychology is straightforward. How do we know which behaviors are most appropriate in a social situation? We learn, in part, because we have positively reinforced for engaging in the appropriate ones and negatively reinforced for engaging in the inappropriate ones. It does not take us long to learn that Margette is more likely to give us the kiss we have been hoping for if we are nice to her, or that our children are more likely to share their toys with others if we reward them for doing it. Operant learning has even been used to explain why some people choose to become criminals. According to this approach, criminal behavior is determined by the reinforcements and punishments that the individual experiences, e.g., with peers and with parents, as a result of his or her behavior. Akers, 1998. Akers, R. L. 1998. Social Learning and Social Structure, A General Theory of Crime and Deviance. Boston, Massachusetts, Northeastern University Press. Associational learning. Associational learning occurs when an object or event comes to be associated with a natural response, such as an automatic behavior or a positive or negative emotion. If you've ever become hungry when you drive by one of your favorite pizza stores, it is probably because the sight of the pizzeria has become associated with your experiences of enjoying the pizzas. We may enjoy smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and eating not only because they give us pleasure themselves, but also because they have been associated with pleasant social experiences in the past. Associational learning also influences our knowledge and judgments about other people. For instance, research has shown that people view men and women who are seen alongside other people who are attractive, or who are said to have attractive girlfriends or boyfriends, more favorably than they do the same people who are seen alongside more average-looking others. Sigal and Landy, 1973. Sigal, H. and Landy, D. 1973. Radiating Beauty, Effects of Having a Physically Attractive Partner on Person Perception. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 28-2, 218 to 224. This liking is due to associational learning. We have positive feelings toward the people simply because those people are associated with the positive features of the attractive others. Associational learning has long been, and continues to be, an effective tool in marketing and advertising. Hawkins, Best, and Coney, 1998. Hawkins, D. Best, R. and Coney, K. 1998. Consumer Behavior, Building Marketing Strategy, 7th edition. Boston, Massachusetts. McGraw-Hill, the general idea is to create an advertisement that has positive features so that it creates enjoyment in the person exposed to it. Because the product being advertised is mentioned in the ad, it becomes associated with the positive feelings that the ad creates. In the end, if everything has gone well, seeing the product online or in a store will then create a positive response in the buyer, leading him or her to be more likely to purchase the product.
Video clip. What's the video clip? You can determine. Copy. YouTube. Can you go to YouTube? Can you go to YouTube?
Sure, let's head over to YouTube.
You said sure and didn't even go there. Can you go to YouTube?
Got it. Let's go straight to YouTube now.
Can get philosophical, create. Hey, Christine.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Christine.
Can you hear me? I have a speaker connected to my computer so I can hear better.
I can hear you perfectly. It's great that you've got a speaker connected. How can I help you today?
I just wanted to keep from interrupting you, but I'm trying to go to YouTube.
Got it. Let's get you to YouTube. Give me a sec. You're all set to it. You're on a new tab page. What are you thinking of searching for on YouTube?
So I already had copied it, so I'm just gonna paste it into the bar. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. I don't need no more help right now. If I need help, I'll let you know.
All right, Christine. Sounds good. You know where to find me if you need anything. Enjoy your YouTube time.
You too.
Got it. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Okay, got you. So I hope I find it. Cognitive therapy based. This is short of 10 minutes. This is 2 minutes. What is active learning? Let's go TED Talk.
Memory and your history make who you are. I invited my mom and my dad, and I watched a video of our Boston trip. They built this portrait, and I got to capture it. And I just think that's so powerful and beautiful.
can picture students in a classroom or lecture hall, books open on their desk, listening intently to a teacher or professor in the front of the room. But in psychology, learning means something else. To psychologists, learning is a long-term change in behavior that's based on experience. Two of the main types of learning are called classical conditioning and operant or instrumental conditioning. Let's talk about classical conditioning first. In the 1890s, a Russian physiologist named Ivan Pavlov did some really famous experiments on dogs. He showed dogs some food and rang a bell at the same time. After a while, the dogs would associate the bell with the food. They would learn that when they heard the bell, they would get fed. Eventually, just ringing the bell made the dog salivate. They learned to expect food at the sound of the bell. You see, under normal conditions, the sight and smell of food causes a dog to salivate. We call the food an unconditioned stimulus, and we call salivation an unconditioned response. Nobody trains a dog to salivate over some steak. However, when we pair an unconditioned stimulus like food with something that was previously neutral, like the sound of a bell, that neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. And so classical conditioning was discovered. We see how this works with animals, but how does it work with humans? In exactly the same way. Let's say that one day you go to the doctor to get a shot. She says, "Don't worry, this won't hurt a bit," and then gives you the most painful shot you've ever had. A few weeks later, you go to the dentist for a checkup. He starts to put a mirror in your mouth to examine your teeth, and he says, "Don't worry, this won't hurt a bit." Even though you know the mirror won't hurt, you jump out of the chair and run screaming from the room. When you went to get a shot, the words, "this won't hurt a bit," became a conditioned stimulus when they were paired with the pain of the shot, the unconditioned stimulus, which was followed by your conditioned response of getting the heck out of there. Classical conditioning in action. Operant conditioning explains how consequences lead to changes in voluntary behavior. So how does operant conditioning work? There are two main components in operant conditioning, reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcers make it more likely that you'll do something again, while punishers make it less likely. Reinforcement and punishment can be positive or negative, but this doesn't mean good or bad. Positive means the addition of a stimulus, like getting dessert after you finish your veggies, and negative means the removal of a stimulus, like getting a night of no homework because you did well on an exam. Let's look at an example of operant conditioning. After eating dinner with your family, you clear the table and wash the dishes. When you're done, your mom gives you a big hug and says, "Thank you for helping me." In this situation, your mom's response is positive reinforcement if it makes you more likely to repeat the operant response, which is to clear the table and wash the dishes. Operant conditioning is everywhere in our daily lives. There aren't many things we do that haven't been influenced at some point by operant conditioning. We even see operant conditioning in some extraordinary situations. One group of scientists showed the power of operant conditioning by teaching pigeons to be art connoisseurs. Using food as a positive reinforcer, scientists have taught pigeons to select paintings by Monet over those by Picasso. When showed works of other artists, scientists observed stimulus generalization as the pigeons chose the Impressionists over the Cubists. Maybe next they'll condition the pigeons to paint their own masterpieces.
Oh, that was funny. Okay, so the operant conditioning is basically a stimulus built with a non-stimulus. So I did that one.
Why does advertising use associative psychology? Imagine walking into a store and seeing a familiar logo that instantly makes you feel happy or relaxed. That's the power of associative psychology in advertising. It's a clever way brands make sure you remember them by linking their products to feelings or ideas you already care about. When you see a picture of a family laughing around a table while drinking a certain soda, your brain begins to connect that drink with happiness and togetherness.
Later, just seeing the soda can make you feel those same emotions without even realizing why. This technique works because our brains naturally learn by making connections. When we see two things together often enough, we start to associate them. For example, if a commercial shows a person winning a race while holding a specific energy drink, your brain might link that drink with success and achievement. Over time, just seeing the drink can give you a little boost of motivation or confidence. A similar strategy is used by corporations that sponsor teams or events. For instance, if people enjoy watching a college basketball team playing basketball, and if that team is sponsored by a product, such as Pepsi, then people may end up experiencing positive feelings when they view a can of Pepsi. Of course, the sponsor wants to sponsor only good teams and good athletes because these create more pleasurable responses. Advertisers use a variety of techniques to create positive advertisements, including enjoyable music, cute babies, attractive models, and funny spokespeople. In one study, Gorn, 1982, Gorn, G.J., 1982, The Effects of Music in Advertising on Choice Behavior, a Classical Conditioning Approach. Journal of Marketing, 46, 1, 94 to 101. Showed research participants pictures of writing pens of different colors, but paired one of the pens with pleasant music and another with unpleasant music. When given a choice as a free gift, more people chose the pen that had been associated with the pleasant music. In another study, Schemer, Mathis, Worth, and Textor, 2008, Schemer, C, Mathis, J, R, Worth, W, and Textor, S, 2008. Does passing the Courvoisier always pay off? Positive and negative evaluative conditioning effects of brand placements in music videos. Psychology and Marketing, 25, 10, 923 to 943. Found that people were more interested in products that had been embedded in music videos of artists that they liked, and less likely to be interested when the products were in videos featuring artists that they did not like. Another type of ad that is based on principles of classical conditioning is one that associates fear with the use of a product or behavior, such as those that show pictures of deadly automobile accidents to encourage seatbelt use or images of lung cancer surgery to discourage smoking. These ads have also been found to be effective. Doss, DeWitt, and Strobe, 2003. Perloff, 2003. Witt and Allen, 2000. Doss, E, H, H, J, DeWitt, J, B, F, and Strobe, W, 2003. Fear appeals motivate acceptance of action recommendations, evidence for a positive bias in the processing of persuasive messages. Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, 29-5, 650 to 664, Perloff, R, N, 2003. The Dynamics of Persuasion, Communication and Attitudes in the 21st Century, 2nd edition. MOA, New Jersey, Lawrence Earlbaum Associates, Witt, K. and Allen, M. 2000. A meta-analysis of fear appeals, implications for effective public health campaigns. Health education and behavior, 27-5, 591 to 615. Largely because of conditioning. Recently, the U.S. government created new negative and graphic images to place on cigarette packs in order to increase an association between negative responses and cigarettes. The idea is that when we see a cigarette and the fear of dying is associated with it, we will be less likely to light up.
Page not found.
together then, research studies provide ample evidence of the utility of associational learning in advertising, in ads using positive stimuli and in those using negative stimuli. This does not mean, however, that we are always influenced by these ads. The likelihood that associational learning will be successful is greater when we do not know much about the products, where the differences between products are relatively minor, and when we do not think too carefully about the choices, Schemer et al. 2008, Schemer, C, Mathis, J, R, Worth, W, and Textor, S, 2008. Does passing the Courvoisier always pay off? Positive and negative evaluative conditioning effects of brand placements in music videos. Psychology and Marketing, 2510, 923 to 943. Associational learning is also implicated in the development of unfair and unjustified racial prejudices. We may dislike people from certain racial or ethnic groups because we frequently see them portrayed in the media as associated with violence, drug use, or terrorism. And we may avoid people with certain physical characteristics simply because they remind us of other people we do not like. Lewicki, 1985, Lewicki, p. 1985. Non-conscious biasing effects of single instances on subsequent judgments. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 48, 563 to 574. Conducted research that demonstrated the influence of associational learning and how quickly and easily such learning can happen. In his experiment, high school students first had a brief interaction with a female experimenter who had short hair and wore glasses. The study was set up so that the students had to ask the experimenter a question, and, according to random assignment, the experimenter responded in either a negative way or a neutral way toward the participants. Then the students were told to go into a second room in which two experimenters were present and to approach either one of them. The researchers arranged it so that one of the two experimenters looked a lot like the original experimenter and the other one did not. She had longer hair and did not wear glasses. The students were significantly more likely to avoid the experimenter who looked like the original experimenter when that experimenter had been negative to them than when she had treated them neutrally. As a result of associational learning, the negative behavior of the first experimenter unfairly rubbed off onto the second. Donald Carlston and his colleagues, May and Carlston, 2005, Skowronski, Carlston, May, and Crawford, 1998, May, L, and Carlston, D, E, 2005. Hoist on your own petard when prejudiced remarks are recognized and backfire on speakers. Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, 41, 3, 240 to 255. Skowronski, J, J, Carlston, D, E, May, L, and Crawford, M, T, 1998. Spontaneous trait transference. Communicators take on the qualities they describe in others. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 74, 4, 837 to 848. Discovered still another way that associational learning can occur. When we say good or bad things about another person in public, the people who hear us say these things associate those characteristics with us, such that they like people who say positive things and dislike people who say negative things. The moral is clear: associational learning is powerful, so be careful what you do and say. Observational learning. In addition to operant and associational learning, people learn by observing the behavior of others. This is known as observational learning, modeling. To demonstrate the importance of observational learning in children, Bandura and Walters, 1959. Bandura, A, and Walters, R, H, 1959. Adolescent Aggression. New York, New York, Ronald Press. Made a film of a young woman beating up a Bobo doll, an inflatable balloon with a weight in the bottom that makes it bob back up when you knock it down. The woman violently hit the doll, shouting, "Sakaru." She also kicked it, sat on it, and hit it with a hammer. Bandura showed his film to groups of nursery school children and then let them play in a room in which there were some really fun toys. To create some frustration in the children, Bandura let the children play with the fun toys for only a couple of minutes before taking them away. Then Bandura gave the children a chance to play with the Bobo doll. You probably won't be surprised to hear that many of the children imitated the young woman in the film. They punched the Bobo doll, shouted "Sakaru," and hit the doll with a hammer.
I don't know why you keep running around crazy as hell and shit. You irritating. Okay. Water. Check. Plant. Check. Still doing homework. So she's basically talking about the same thing that my other psychology person was talking about. So with that being said, Bandura from his model and study this video clip too. So okay, so hit the doll with a hammer. Okay, so see video clip. Take a moment to see Albert explain his research and his wrestling and children. So the difference is I'm getting an actual visual.
Take a moment to see how Albert Bandura explains his research into the modeling of aggression in children.
Okay. Keep pressing YouTube. This shit moves slow as fuck.
This totally legit influencer loves electric vehicles.
As if.
This IRL test drive will change your mind. Just like that, the influencer has become the influence. Toyota BZ, one drive can change your mind.
When we think about learning, we often picture Picture students in a classroom or lecture hall, books open on their desk, listening intently to a teacher or professor in the front of the room. But in psychology, learning means something else. To psychologists, learning is a long-term change in behavior that's based on experience. Two of the main types of learning are called classical conditioning and operant.
We are already listened to that. You are talking about the association with the Bobo Dog. So, why is none of the clips working? What the hell am I?
I use PayPal to buy this ticket. I'm paying it off over time. No fees, no interest.
No one else has no interest? Me.
You can pay your own way.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
The captain needs you back in the cockpit.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
What do you think? Can we only learn through direct experience, or also from studying others? Psychologist Albert Bandura came up with an interesting experiment to answer that exact question and form a theory. Bandura came up with the social learning theory in the 1960s, a time dominated by scholars who didn't believe Bandura's idea and argued that learning was always the result of classical and operational conditioning. To prove that children can learn by mere observation, Bandura came up with the Bobo doll experiments, a set of controversial studies which involved preschool children, adult models, and a stand-up punch doll. In the first set of experiments, the children were seated alone in a corner of the room. From there, they observed an adult actor aggressively kicking and scolding the Bobo doll for about 10 minutes. Afterwards, the same child was put into a new playroom where another adult deliberately frustrated the child by taking away the toys the child played with. The frustrated child was then put back into the room with the Bobo doll, where Bandura and his team made the following 3 observations. 1. Children who initially saw the adult punching the doll often copied the behavior. 2. Boys were 3 times more likely to do so. 3. Boys reproduced the behavior twice as often if they observed a man do it, compared to boys who observed a female actor. Girls were also more influenced by same-sex models. To find out if movies would have the same effect, Bandura let some children watch the model live and others watch it on video, or as a cartoon animation. As all 3 groups showed similar responses, Bandura concluded that children imitate others regardless of where they have seen the behavior. In the last variation of the experiments, Bandura wanted to know if the children would act differently when the models were reinforced or punished for their behavior towards the doll. Now, the children first saw the actor hit the doll and then observed another adult enter the room. This second adult would then react to the actor. These last results showed that it did not make much of a difference to the children whether the aggressor was praised or not. However, the kids who saw that the model was punished displayed much less aggression later, an effect which was especially true for girls. In other words, seeing others being rewarded does not necessarily motivate us to copy their behavior. Seeing others being punished, on the other hand, can significantly diminish our will to copy it. The fact that Bandura was able to prove that children also learn by observing others was a breakthrough in psychology. As a consequence of its findings, scholars and government officials argued that we should ban violence in films and games. Others suggested that the Bobo doll studies are not studies of aggression, but rather show that the children are simply motivated by the desire to please adults or act like them. Bandura and his co-author Richard Walters later defined 5 key tenets of the social learning theory. 1. Learning is a cognitive process that takes place in a social setting. 2. Learning can occur by observing behavior and the consequences of such. 3. Learning can happen without an observable change in behavior because we may learn without displaying what we have learned. 4. Reinforcements play a role but are not entirely responsible for learning. 5. Cognition, behavior, and environment all mutually influence each other, a process called reciprocal determinisms. Bandura, who in college attended a psychology course only to kill time, soon became passionate about the topic, and then one of the most cited psychologists in history. About reality, he said, "Most of the images of reality on which we base our actions are really based on vicarious experience. What do you think? How much of your learning comes from observing others? And if you learn socially, who are your greatest teachers?"
This and all other Sprouts videos are licensed under Creative Commons. That means teachers from all around the world can use them in classrooms, online courses, or to start projects. And today, thousands already do. To learn how it works and download this video without ads or background music, check out our website or read the description below. If you want to support our mission and help change education,
So when it comes down to it, when a person get punished, they most likely is not going to repeat the behavior. But if people are studying feeding their kids things like violence and other things and letting them look at that stuff, most likely they're going to start mirroring that behavior. In kids, it's the behavior of mirroring. Now, in dogs, it's a behavior of cognitive influencing. So what about adults? Hold up, let me ask Copilot.
Hey, Christine, what's on your mind? Hey, Christine, what's on your mind today?
It's good. I still got you hooked up to the speaker, so you might be hearing other stuff in the background. You gotta pay attention to my voice as best as possible.
No worries, I can focus on your voice even with some background noise. Just let me know what's up or if there's anything you need help with.
So basically, I was looking at this stuff, right, that was on my psychology homework, and I just wanted to, like, get a perspective. So the only thing that they haven't talked about was adults. But they talked about the fact that animals experience cognitive, it's like a cognitive, not cognitive, oh crap, I had it in my brain. Give me a second. Okay, the kids were experiencing, it was something about basically the motto of, if you being punished, you will most likely not repetition that behavior. But kids mirror behavior. And that's something that that they made possible about social psychology. But when it came down to dogs, they are the neurological, I think, cognitive, neurologically, some type of way of putting the bell together with the meat, and they start salivating, or whatever the case may have you. So, is that operant? I think that's opera conditioning. I'm trying to make sure I remember all this.
That's a classic example of classical conditioning, not operant conditioning. It's like Pavlov's dogs salivating at the sound of a bell because they associated it with food. Operant conditioning is different. It involves learning through rewards and punishments for behavior.
Okay, so the
you're
kids. The kids is operant conditioning, and you said what about the dogs, or did I get it mixed up again?
No worries. You got it right earlier. The dogs are related to classical conditioning, like Pavlov's experiments, where they salivated at the sound of a bell because they associated it with food. That's different from operant conditioning, which is learning through rewards and punishments. You're on point.
Okay, so the only people they have not talked about is basically adults. So I'm gonna wait till I get a little bit further, but I just wanted to go back in my brain and make sure I remember. So, dogs, classical conditioning, and kids is operant conditioning.
It's an approach where behaviors are learned through rewards and punishments. Like, if you do something and get a positive outcome, you're more likely to do it again. It's all about learning from consequences. Got it?
And on top of that, mirroring, because they talked about mirroring behavior, actually.
Yeah, mirroring is fascinating. It's where people mimic each other's behavior, often unconsciously, to build rapport or social connection. It's like when you find yourself copying someone's gestures or speech patterns because it creates a sense of similarity and understanding. Pretty cool, huh?
It's just hard to remember all this stuff and take in all this information all at once.
It can be a lot to take in, no doubt. Just remember, it's okay to take it slow and break it down into pieces. You've got this, Christine. If you need to chat or have a question, I'm here to help.
Okay, thank you. It's just in general, I had to chat about it because I had to remember it. So, operant conditioning is kids. Natural conditioning is dogs. Wonder if they're gonna talk about adult conditioning.
Based on what I'm seeing, they're covering social learning and cognition, which includes things like operant learning. So there's definitely room for exploring how adults learn or adapt their behavior. It's a common topic in psychology. Let's keep an eye out for any mention of adult learning or conditioning. Sounds interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically. But then I think they did mention it, but they didn't tell me what the word was. Now that you say that, because they was talking about basically advertisements. So do adults learn through advertisement?
Absolutely. Adults learn through ads, whether it's associating positive feelings with products or seeing negative consequences to avoid. Those clever jingles, catchy slogans, and emotional stories are all designed to make an impression. It's a part of social cognition, shaping how we view products and even influencing our decisions. Pretty wild, huh?
Okay, so there's this social cognition. So the adults is social cognition. Then you got operant conditioning, which is kids. Then you got natural conditioning, which is animals.
Gotcha. So let's break it down. Social cognition applies to everyone, adults included. Operant conditioning isn't limited to kids, though. It's just learning through rewards and punishments, and it applies to all ages. And what you called natural conditioning, it's actually classical conditioning and can involve animals, but also humans. It's about linking stimuli and responses, like Pavlov's dogs. Does that clear things up?
Oh my God, this is a lot to take in. And I keep forgetting that it is called classical conditioning. I keep forgetting that. I don't know where I got natural conditioning from. I'm trying to figure that out. It's study coming out of my mouth, but I don't know why.
So, adults mainly learn through social cognition, which is the mental activity related to understanding and predicting behavior. Operant conditioning, on the other hand, is about learning from consequences and relates to all ages, not just kids. Classical conditioning is a bit different. It's about associating stimuli with responses, like Pavlov's dogs. You tracking with me?
I'm trying to track with you, but that's kind of hard to remember. So stimuli is basically classical conditioning. It's basically it replies like a bill or a random object with maybe something that is food or something that is bad. You said crap. You said that the other one, operant conditioning, is reward and punishment that goes for all ages. And then you said I forgot the other. Shoot. Social conditioning is through ads, right?
Exactly, Christine. Ads use associational learning to connect positive emotions to products, making you more likely to buy them. So next time you see an ad, think about what it's trying to make you feel. It's pretty clever, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty clever, but it's crazy that now that you say that, I get tired of seeing ads because they always want me to buy some things, and I'm tired of buying. I'm tired of looking at ads and buying things. Like I ain't got no money.
I hear you. Money stress is real. Just hang tight. Things can turn around. Is there anything I can do to help or chat about to ease your mind?
Uh, no, just homework. Just make sure I'm trying to get this correct because I just want to know before I take this quiz and get myself into some stuff. I need to make sure I be able to, actually write these essays correctly. And like you said, I want to keep repeating the same thing because I will forget. And like you said, operant conditioning is between reward and discipline. Classical conditioning is a stimulus. of the brain, and social conditioning is through ads. Oh, I think I got it.
Sounds like a plan, Christine. Catch you later?
Okay, catch you later. Thank you.
No problem, Christine. Take care.
You too. Observational learning. So, together we researched the program of learning, advertisements, and ads. I think I read all this. Observational learning. I think I'm on this. I'm not going to keep repeating the same damn things.
Observational learning. In addition to operant and associational learning, people learn by observing the behavior of others. This is known as observational learning modeling. To demonstrate the importance of observational learning in children, Bandura and Walters, 1959. Bandura, A, and Walters, R, H, 1959. Adolescent Aggression. New York, New York, Ronald Press. Made a film of a young woman beating up a Bobo doll, an inflatable balloon with a weight in the bottom that makes it bob back up when you knock it down. The woman violently hit the doll, shouting, "Socceroo." She also kicked it, sat on it, and hit it with a hammer. Bandura showed his film to groups of...
I read this already. Why does it keep reading the same thing over and over again? We already read that. Stop reading the same shit over and over again.
The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that stores information about people and about our interactions with them. How schemas develop, accommodation and assimilation. Because they represent our past experience, and because past experience is useful for prediction, our schemas serve as expectations about future events. For instance, if you have watched Italian movies or if you have visited Italy, you might have come to the conclusion that Italians frequently gesture a lot with their hands when they talk, that they are quite expressive. This knowledge will be contained in your group schema about Italians. Therefore, when you meet someone who is Italian, or even when you meet someone who reminds you of an Italian person, you may well expect that they will gesture when they talk. Having a database of social knowledge to draw on is obviously extremely useful. If we didn't know or couldn't remember anything about anyone or about anything that we had encountered in the past, our life would be difficult indeed, because we would continually have to start our learning over again. Our schemas allow us to better understand people and help us make sense of information, particularly when the information is unclear or ambiguous. They also allow us to fill in the blanks by making guesses about what other people are probably like or probably going to do in cases where things are uncertain. Furthermore, the fact that different people have different past experiences, and thus that their schemas and attitudes are different, helps explain why different people draw different conclusions about the same events. Once they have developed, schemas influence our subsequent learning, such that the new people and situations we encounter are interpreted and understood in terms of our existing knowledge. Piaget and Inhelder, 1966. Taylor and Crocker, 1981. Piaget, J. and Inhelder, B. 1962. The Psychology of the Child. New York, New York. Basic Books. Taylor, S. E. and Crocker, J. 1981. Schematic Bases of Social Information Processing. In E. T. Higgins, C. P. Herman, and M. P. Zana, eds. Social Cognition. The Ontario Symposium, Volume 1. Pages 89 to 134. Hillsdale, New Jersey. Lawrence Erlbaum Associates. Imagine, for instance, that you have a schema and thus an expectation that Italians are very expressive, and you now meet Bianca, who has arrived at your school directly from Rome, Italy. You immediately expect her to be outgoing and expressive. However, as you get to know Bianca, you discover that she is not at all expressive and does not talk with her hands. In fact, she is quite shy and reserved. How does existing information influence how we react to the new information that we receive? One possibility is that the new information simply updates our existing expectations. We might decide, for instance, that there is more variation among Italians in terms of expressiveness than we had previously realized, and we might resolve that Italians can sometimes be very shy and thoughtful. Or perhaps we might note that although Bianca is Italian, she is also a woman. This might lead us change our schema such that we now believe that although Italian men are expressive, Italian women are not. When existing schemas change on the basis of new information, we call the process accommodation. In other cases, however, we engage in assimilation, a process in which our existing knowledge influences new conflicting information to better fit with our existing knowledge, thus reducing the likelihood of schema change. If we use assimilation, instead of changing our expectations about Italians, we might try to reinterpret Bianca's unexpected behavior to make it more consistent with our expectations. For instance, we might decide that Bianca's behavior is actually more expressive than we thought it was at first, or that she is acting in a more shy and reserved manner because she is trying to impress us with her thoughtfulness, or because she is not yet comfortable at the new school. Or we might assume that she is expressive at home with her family, but not around us. In these cases, the process of assimilation has led us to process the new information about Bianca in a way that allows us to keep our existing expectations about Italians more generally intact. How schemas maintain themselves, the power of assimilation. As we have seen in our earlier discussion, accommodation, i.e., the changing of beliefs on the basis of new information, does occur. It is the process of learning itself. Our beliefs about Italians may well change through our encounters with Bianca. However, there are many factors that lead us to assimilate information to our expectations rather than to accommodate our expectations to fit new information. In fact, we can say that in most cases, once a schema is developed, it will be difficult to change it because the expectation leads us to process new information in ways that serve to strengthen it rather than to weaken it. The tendency toward assimilation is so strong that it has substantial effects on our everyday social cognition. One outcome of assimilation is the confirmation bias, the tendency for people to favor information that confirms their expectations, regardless of whether the information is true.
Echo, what type of bait on Fishing Planet do American Shed eat?
Sorry, I didn't catch that clearly. What are you asking about?
What type of bait does the fish on Fishing Planet eat? It's called the American Shed.
American shad don't typically feed on bait during their spawning run. They're caught using special dart lures instead.
What I'm saying is, they don't have no type of bait that they use?
American shad primarily feed on plankton, small shrimp, and fish eggs. They may not actively feed during their spawning run, which is why they're caught with special dart lures instead of typical bait.
So you said fish eggs and what else? Echo, you said fish eggs?
Yes, American shad do eat fish eggs.
What else?
They also feed on plankton, small shrimp, and worms.
Shrimps and worms. What about bloodworms?
American shad don't typically eat bloodworms. They mainly feed on plankton, small shrimp, and fish eggs.
What about red worms? Like you said worms.
American shad can eat worms, but they're not a main part of their diet. They mostly feed on plankton and small shrimp.
I don't have no small shrimp in my category. I don't even think I could buy none right now. That's the only reason why I'm saying that.
I understand you're looking for practical options right now. While American shad typically eats small shrimp and plankton, they can also take worms. Would you like to know about other bait options that might be easier to find locally?
It's basically, I'm playing a game. So you said shrimp, fresh bait, boiler spinners, saltwater baits, common baits. Go to that. Nope. All they got is corn and some type of balls. That's all I see. Insects, worm bait. I don't see. What about fresh small cooked bait? That's crawfish. Nope. Almost at my limit. £51. Damn, I can't play it.
How schemas maintain themselves, the power of assimilation. As we have seen in our earlier discussion, accommodation, i.e., the changing of beliefs on the basis of new information, does occur. It is the process of learning itself. Our beliefs about Italians may well change through our encounters with Bianca. However, there are many factors that lead us to assimilate information to our expectations rather than to accommodate our expectations to fit new information. In fact, we can say that in most cases, once a schema is developed, it will be difficult to change it because the expectation leads us to process new information in ways that serve to strengthen it rather than to weaken it. The tendency toward assimilation is so strong that it has substantial effects on our everyday social cognition. One outcome of assimilation is the confirmation bias, the tendency for people to favor information that confirms their expectations, regardless of whether the information is true. Research focus. The confirmation bias. Consider the results of a research study conducted by Ross, Lepper, and Hubbard, 1975, Ross, L, Lepper, N, R, and Hubbard, M, 1975. Perseverance in self-perception and social perception, Biased attributional processes in the debriefing paradigm. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 32, 880 to 892. That demonstrated the confirmation bias. In this research, high school students were asked to read a set of 25 pairs of cards, in which each pair supposedly contained one real and one fake suicide note. The students' task was to examine both cards and to decide which of the two notes was written by an actual suicide victim. After the participants read each card and made their decision, the experimenter told them whether their decision was correct or incorrect. However, the feedback was not at all based on the participants' responses. Rather, the experimenters arranged the feedback so that, on the basis of random assignment, different participants were told either that they were successful at the task, they got 24 out of 25 correct, average at the task. They got 17 out of 25 correct, or poor at the task. They got 10 out of 25 correct, regardless of their actual choices. At this point, the experimenters stopped the experiment and completely explained to the participants what had happened, including how the feedback they had received was predetermined so that they would learn that they were either successful, average, or poor at the task. They were even shown the schedule that the experimenters had used to give them the feedback. Then the participants were asked, as a check on their reactions to the experiment, to indicate how many answers they thought they would get correct on a subsequent and real series of 25 card pairs. As you can see in the following figure, the results of this experiment showed a clear tendency for expectations to be maintained even in the face of information that should have discredited them. Students who had been told that they were successful at the task indicated that they thought they would get more responses correct in a real test of their ability than those who thought they were average at the task. And students who thought they were average thought they would do better than those told they were poor at the task. In short, once students had been convinced that they were either good or bad at the task, they really believed it. It then became very difficult to remove their beliefs, even by providing information that should have effectively done so. Figure 2.1, the confirmation bias. In this demonstration of the power of assimilation, participants were given initial feedback that they were good, average, or poor on a task, but then told that the feedback was entirely false. The feedback, which should have been discounted, nevertheless continued to influence participants' estimates of how well they would do on a future task. Data are from Ross, Lepper, and Hubbard, 1975, Ross, L., Lepper, N., R., and Hubbard, M., 1975. Perseverance in Self-Perception and Social Perception, Biased Attributional Processes in the Debriefing Paradigm. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 32, 880 to 892. Why do we tend to hold on to our beliefs rather than change them? One reason that our beliefs often outlive the evidence on which they are supposed to be based is that people come up with reasons to support their beliefs. People who learned that they were good at detecting real suicide notes probably thought of a lot of reasons why this might be the case. Geez, I predicted that Susie would break up with Billy, or I knew that my mom was going to be sad after I left for college. Whereas the people who learned that they were not good at the task probably thought of the opposite types of reasons. I had no idea that Jean was going to drop out of high school. You can see that these tendencies will produce assimilation, the interpretation of our experiences in ways that support our existing beliefs. Indeed, research has found that perhaps the only way to reduce our tendencies to assimilate information into our existing belief is to explicitly force people to think about exactly the opposite belief. Anderson and Seckler, 1986. Anderson, C. A. and Seckler, E. S. 1986. Effects of explanation and counter-explanation on the development and use of social theories. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 50, 1, 24 to 34. In
mystery powder from a plastic container where a whole bacterial family is having a reunion, then adds a handful of suspicious, mysterious white powder. The mixture starts bubbling instantly, like the lost souls of a sewer fighting their way back up. To finish the blend, the master plucks a few blades of grass that survive the drainage cracks and throws them in, calling them natural herbs. He grabs a family heirloom stick and stirs, like he's summoning something that should...
What the fuck is that? What the fuck is this?
never wake. Sweat drips from his fingers into the brew, adding a unique, irreversible human flavor. Then the first brave soul steps forward. The master serves him a cup and proudly demonstrates his cleaning method, a quick Ganges rinse. Done. This is the one drink that guarantees you'll find a bathroom within 3 seconds. And if you don't panic. Where you're standing will instantly become one. We have some... Today we've arrived at the birthplace.
Now I got my kids in here with me. So I'm not like, ain't nobody taking my kids away from me unless they're grown animals. They in my house. They making threats to me. I'm here for anybody, bro.
Ray J was arrested early Thursday morning after a shocking live stream showed him holding a gun during a heated confrontation with his estranged wife, Princess Love, inside their Los Angeles home. During the live stream, Ray J complained about having a terrible Thanksgiving before grabbing a handgun and making threats toward an unidentified man who believed might enter the house. Moments later, Princess Love entered holding their daughter and accused him of pointing the weapon at them, an allegation he denied. Police arrived after viewers reported the incident, ultimately arresting Ray J on suspicion of making criminal threats. He was booked and held on $50,000 bail. The arrest adds to a long history of public...
I swear to God, I'm in my own house. I did so close to this door, my police. But like, bro. Take my kids to y'all truck. Y'all wanna drive truck? Y'all wanna drive truck? Drive truck. Drive truck, princess. Drive truck. Drive truck. Drive truck, princess. Go ahead. You wanna take my kids? You and
do we tend to hold on to our beliefs rather than change them? One reason that our beliefs often outlive the evidence on which they are supposed to be based is that people come up with reasons to support their beliefs. People who learned that they were good at detecting real suicide notes probably thought of a lot of reasons why this might be the case. Geez, I predicted that Susie would break up with Billy, or I knew that my mom was going to be sad after I left for college. Whereas the people who learned that they were not good at the task probably thought of the opposite types of reasons. I had no idea that Jean was going to drop out of high school. You can see that these tendencies will produce assimilation, the interpretation of our experiences in ways that support our existing beliefs. Indeed, research has found that perhaps the only way to reduce our tendencies to assimilate information into our existing belief is to explicitly force people to think about exactly the opposite belief. Anderson and Seckler, 1986. Anderson, C. A. and Seckler, E. S. 1986. Effects of explanation and counter-explanation on the development and use of social theories. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 51, 24-34. In some cases, our existing knowledge acts to direct our attention toward information that matches our expectations and prevents us from attempting to attend to or acknowledge conflicting information. Fisk and Newberg, 1990. Fisk, S. T. and Newberg, S. L. 1990. A continuum of impression formation, from category-based to individuating processes, influences of information and motivation on attention and interpretation. In M. P. Vanna, ed. Advances in Experimental Social Psychology, Volume 23, pages 1-74. New York, New York, Academic. To return to our example of Bianca from Rome, when we first meet her, we may immediately begin to look for signs of expressiveness in her behavior and personality. Because we expect people to confirm our expectations, we frequently respond to new people as if we already know what they are going to be like. Yakov Trope and Eric Thompson, 1997. Trope, Y, and Thompson, E, 1997. Looking for truth in all the wrong places? Asymmetric search of individuating information about stereotyped group members. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 73, 229-241. Found in their research that individuals addressed fewer questions to people about whom they already had strong expectations, and that the questions they did ask were likely to confirm the expectations they already had. Because we believe that Italians are expressive, we expect to see that behavior in Bianca. We preferentially attend to information that confirms those beliefs, and we tend to ignore any disconfirming information. The outcome is that our expectations resist change. Fazio, Ledbetter, and Tolschwen, 2000. Fazio, R. H. Ledbetter, J. E. and Tolschwen, T. 2000. On the costs of accessible attitudes, detecting that the attitude object has changed. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 78-2, 197-210. Our reliance on schemas can also make it more difficult for us to think outside the box. Peter Wason, 1960, Wason, P., 1960. On the failure to eliminate hypotheses in a conceptual task. The Quarterly Journal of Experimental Psychology, 12-3, 129-140. Asked college students to determine the rule that was used to generate the numbers 246 by asking them to generate possible sequences and then telling them if those numbers followed the rule. The first guess that students made was usually consecutive ascending even numbers, and they then asked questions designed to confirm their hypothesis. Does 102-104-106 fit? What about 434-436-438? Upon receiving information that those guesses did fit the rule, the students stated that the rule was consecutive ascending even numbers. But the students' use of the confirmation bias led them to ask only about instances that confirmed their hypothesis and not about those that would disconfirm it. They never bothered to ask whether 123 or 3-11-200 would fit. If they had, they would have learned that the rule was not consecutive ascending even numbers, but simply any 3 ascending numbers. Again, you can see that once we have a schema, in this case, a hypothesis, we continually retrieve that schema from memory rather than other relevant ones, leading us to act in ways that tend to confirm our beliefs. Because expectations influence what we attend to, they also influence what we remember. One frequent outcome is that information that confirms our expectations is more easily processed, is more easily understood, and thus has a bigger impact than does information that disconfirms our expectations. There is substantial research evidence indicating that when processing information about social groups, individuals tend to particularly remember information better that confirms their existing beliefs about those groups. Fjock and Stanger. 1994, Van Nippenberg and Dijksterhuis. 1996, Fjock, J. and Stanger, C. 1994. The role of memory biases in stereotype maintenance. British Journal of Social Psychology, 33, 331 to 343. Van Nippenberg, A. and Dijksterhuis, A. 1996. A posteriori stereotype activation. The preservation of stereotypes through memory distortion. Social Cognition, 14, 21 to 54. If we have the statistically erroneous stereotype that women are bad drivers, we tend to remember the cases where we see a woman driving poorly, but to forget the cases where we see a woman driving well. This, of course, strengthens and maintains our beliefs and produces even more